Sales is the cycle of life. Sales is a lubricant of society. Without sales, none of us have jobs. Nothing happens, right?
It's time to get inside your own head. Begin with the psychology behind your behaviors. Infuse it with an acute understanding of self-awareness, emotion, storytelling, body language, and more. Then look at it all through the lens of the latest neuroscience research, broken down to its most digestible form. And you've arrived. Enhanced messaging, deeper connection, heightened influence, and a greater impact on the world. Welcome to the Amplify podcast with Rene Rodriguez.
All right, welcome everybody to the Amplify podcast. And today I have a very special guest who has become a friend over the years, but more importantly, somebody that wrote a book that we have desperately needed. If you know me, yes, I wrote a book on Amplify Your Influence and the science and neuroscience, but at the end of the day, at the core of who I am, I'm a salesperson. And that is something that I have a massive, massive passion for and respect. And I have read all of the books since I was 18 years old. I've been through all the classes, and we haven't had a book that has come back out to go and cover not just the basic, the foundation. I say basic in the best possible way, the foundational fundamentals that also give you the opportunity to take those fundamentals to an expert level. And that book has finally been written by my good friend and guest here today, Mr. Sam Taggart, who wrote this book, Eat What You Kill. Now, if you know anything about what that sounds like and what that is the truest mentality of a sales pro. Is they have been asked to believe in something. And then they say, you know what? I want you to believe in something with all your heart and then tell everybody that you know. And oh, by the way, most people are going to tell you no. But don't take it personal. And that's the part that I never really resonated with. You want me to believe in something and tell everybody and then not take it personal? Of course I take it personal. But that's what I think makes us all unique, and why you're probably listening here is that the thing that we have is not that we don't take it personal, is that we have great coping skills for those moments. That's why we gravitate toward personal and professional development. And so I want to tell you about Sam. Sam, 10 years ago, was pounding the streets door to door, selling what he was selling, which, by the way, door to door is where I started selling cookware. So we are kindred spirits, Sam, you and I, doing that and really developing a process. And I'm going to tell you why I'm excited to have Sam, because he is the breath of fresh air that sales is needed. It has had a bad rap. It has had a negative stigma. But at the end of the day, there is nothing better than being in the hands of a professional that can understand our needs and solve our problem. And a problem that the solution is worth way more than the money they're asking. And that's the job of a true sales professional. So without further ado, I want to bring Sam. Welcome, and thanks for being on here, brother.
Thank you, Rene. And what a pleasure. This is exciting. Long time coming. So
it has been a long time coming, man. You know what I think in terms of what you're doing and all of those things. And so tell me, with you, let's just go back briefly. And I don't want to go too much. I hate when people go into podcast history of what your background, because I want to get into the meat of this. Yeah, but I do want 30, 40 seconds of where you came from, how you got to this, and then I want to get into the heart of the book.
I mean, you said it best. I was built on the streets. Since 11 years old, door-to-door sales. Never had a W-2 job. Sold anything from magazines to curb painting to alarms to solar, from on a VP level of hundreds of reps down to just the traditional, like, I'm out in the field ever since then. So 2018, we started D2D Experts, where we train thousands of salespeople all over the world in the art of direct sales. And I think that a lot of people in today's world have struggled. Kind of this carnivore, the premise of the book is becoming a sales carnivore, where that's just all we knew. So it's, the people that I surrounded myself were all just hunters. We never had leads, never got preset appointments. You know what I mean? It's just, we went out and hunted. And, as a coaching company now, our premise is sales, leadership, and recruiting. And any of those three pillars, we try to help businesses and professionals really elevate their game on those three categories.
I love that. And I want to go back to that carnivore piece, because a lot of, the carnivore diet has gotten a lot of notoriety. So I want to mistake.
I know my SEO, I'm like competing with carnivore diet.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's not yes.
But but the mentality of a carnivore wakes up with nothing and says, I have to go, if I want to eat today, I got to go kill something. And that is the sales exact mentality. It says, you know what? I have no leads today. Let me go prospect and let me
Yes.
generate leads. And then let me set appointments with those leads. And then let me present value to those leads. And then once I do that, then I can close those leads. And then I can do the aftercare and take care of them. And then I can get the referral. There's just a robotic, beautiful mindset of full self dependency and ownership. I love that you're teaching that. And so when you wanted to write this book, like when you look at the table of contents, you realize that this is not just a book you're going to read. This is going to be a manual and a reference guide for all sales trainers and all sales managers. This is something that should be out there because you're covering everything from the beginning of the process to the mindset. I mean, you're literally starting with mindset. Thank God. Like, because you don't have the right mindset, doesn't matter the skill. Let's just talk about mindset for a minute. Because we talked on the Eat What You Kill is the sort of representation of the mindset. But how does one develop that mindset if they're in a business that, let's say, hasn't required them to sell, but they now need to?
Yeah, and I think today's makeup of the economy is actually shifting a little bit that way. I mean, I look at ad spend not going as far, and I look at managers and owners all day, and I wrote it actually for them to give to every single one of their sales reps. Because it's like, you think about it, the softer generation, this like kind of I'm entitled to, especially because of the internet, has actually kind of depleted the resources of a strong carnivore salesperson. And once an herbivore, it's kind of hard to go back to being a carnivore. And what ends up happening is people are like, no, I'm a carnivore. I'm a carnivore. No, no, no. If you get leads and somebody hands you appointments and you're dependent on marketing and you're depending on someone else to generate some kind of activity, you're an herbivore. Like, let's just call it a spade. And it's not bad. It's just we're missing a lot of this, shift into how do we be more carnivore? How do we switch that, like you asked? And it's this W-2 versus 1099 mentality. Everybody's out there looking for comfortability, complacency. They're like, as long as I get my base plus benefits with a little bit of commissions, I'm happy. And I'm like, oh, let's reverse engineer this. A business hires you to make 3 to 4 times what they, pay you, they want to make on you. And so if you do some quick math, whatever you are selling, and if you're getting paid a base, or you come from maybe your last 5 years of employment, and then you finally move into real estate agent or something like that, or an insurance agent where you're like, I am 1099, don't have a base. I'm like, okay, you're probably still carrying a W-2 mentality into your profession today. Where I had a friend come over to my house yesterday, and he works at a car lot. He's kind of the GM guy. And he's like so frustrated because he's like, I don't get paid to sell these cars. And, the owner won't pay for my salesman license to go start selling these cars. And I was like, why are you waiting on him to pay for your salesman license to then go sell the cars? Why don't you just go get the license and
just
then
pay for it?
Pay for it. And I was like, you're an herbivore, bro. You're depending on him to say, yes, you should now, here you go, money, go get your license. And I'm like, sorry, bro. You're like, why would you demand more pay? He's like, I want to make more money. I want to go to him and I'm going to ask for a raise. And I'm like, how about you just go demand your raise? And a carnivore demands his own value because he's the one that makes the kills. And it's just
and he has meat to show for it.
Yes, he has something to bring home. He's like, do you want to eat with me? Because I'm eating really fat and happy right now.
Because if you don't want to feed me, if you don't want to do this, I'm going to go definitely on the street and I'm going to make my own, period. I love the distinction, the simplicity of herbivore, carnivore. And don't get caught up in food analogies right now if you're listening to this.
Yes.
It's just a mindset. Don't overthink it. Make it simple for yourself.
Farmer. We could go down different parallels.
There's so many different ways. Hunter, farmer. Yeah, there's so many different things of thinking about it. But at the end of the day, it's about taking personal responsibility, but yet reasonable as well, because you can't, like Jim Rohn used to say, you can't demand your way to making more money. It doesn't work that way. You have to climb something, and you have to climb something, and you have to build something. And if you go, like for me, well, I got into sales because I got cut from my basketball team at 18 years old. And I got a chance, luckily, to talk to a CEO and I just said, I'm devastated, didn't know what to do. And I said, what's the one thing I got to do to be in your shoes when I get older? And he said, you learn how to sell. If you learn how to sell, you'll always be employed. And at 18, I'm just going to go out there and do this. And, I get told no 7 times and I'll sell 3. How many times can I do 10 in a day is what I thought. And it taught me this self-reliance and not dependent on anyone for my income, but really more importantly, taught me how to create value. Because I think a distinction between, and I wrote about the article you and I talked about, is the difference between an order taker and a sales professional. And an
Yes.
order taker, in my definition, would be somebody who facilitates a transaction that would have happened anyways, with or without you. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time. But a sales professional is somebody who uncovers unseen value. And that happens through presentation and actually showing up and saying, hey, did you know? With some great presentation and pitch skills. And the person goes, wow, I never saw that before. Thank you. And that person then gets paid for that. But they get paid for bringing value.
I love that. And I think, like, going back to your concept of what do I need to do to be in your shoes? People are trying to fast track that gestation period. Like think about it. You might be 40 and you have to enter into, I need 3 years of getting my face kicked in to become a carnivore. And so many people, I mean, I interviewed Ed Milet on my podcast and he talked about, he's like, people see me today, I'm worth over $500 million, but they didn't see the 10 years of me knocking doors in insurance.
Yeah.
And, that, like, people see me today, but they didn't see the 15 years of just straight pavement pounding and that skill set, the muscle. And it's like a lion, if it's born into a lion's pride, it had to go through training to become, okay, you're worthy to go out and now kill the buffalo or the gazelle or something with us, right? But like what happens is if you're a giraffe and you're born into giraffe culture and all of a sudden it's like, go hunt. And you're just like, like your legs are going to look funky. You're going to be like, it's going to be
It's
uncomfortable.
awkward.
But people want to fast track. They want to like microwave mentality. They want to like jump over this whole learn the muscle of sales professional. And maybe it requires you to go back and get a, 10, like go hit the doors and be like, yeah, I have to humble myself for a second because I want to be a strong entrepreneur. But it's like you never built the resilience muscle. You never built the value building skill set. You never built the ability to move through a customer, like you just said, yet you want to somehow be a badass business owner and like run all this sales organization, but you can't speak to it. You don't understand the muscle.
Yeah. It's so funny because if you listen to this, what Sam's talking applies way more than sales. This applies to every new skill set. It applies to being a new leader. It applies to learning how to walk. It applies to a new relationship. There's a learning curve for a reason. And that's also why we value experience, because they've been through ups and downs. And to me, this is somewhat generational, I think, too, is that we are in a very impatient, let's get to it, give me the hack environment where certain things I might be able to speed up a little bit and accelerate the process through coaching and things like that. But you cannot replace experience. And it's also grounded in science. There are things that are biologically primary and biologically secondary. You can study and learn algebra and math and reading through a teacher and a guide, and you'll learn those things. But then there's things that are primary that are, how to defend oneself, how to recognize a friendly face versus a threatening face. Those are things that require stress and the engagement of that activity over time. Just like fighting, you can't learn how to fight by reading a brochure. You actually have to get in the ring and get punched in the face a few times. So your literally nervous system starts really calculating distances and seeing things. It's like playing baseball. The reason why those guys hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball is they've seen a few million of them. I was talking to a friend of mine who played minor leagues. I go, how many times you swung a bat? He goes, I think I'd calculated 5 million swings. I was like, wow, that's a lot. And that's a lot. I don't think I've swung 1,000. And I played baseball. But those things that you're talking about, getting those reps in, you can't fast forward it. And I don't think you want to. Like somebody once said that awkwardness is a requirement for growth. But yet, so if you avoid any awkwardness, you won't grow. It's as simple as that. And so the mindset we went through here, being self-reliant, taking responsibility, eating what you kill, which is such a great way of thinking about it. And then you get into this overall strategy, which to me is really around sales process. Then you go into nonverbal selling. Thank God, because there's so much to that. Prospecting, which everyone avoids, but is impossible to avoid. You have to prospect. Pitching versus presenting, which I love that you separated those out because they are different. And then even covering objections and then moving into closing and then the bigger picture. So which of those chapters was your favorite? I'm curious.
Chapter 11, I think it is. Let me see. I have the book here. But it's talks about you might be saving a life. And
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
sales.
chapter 11, page 34.
Yeah, okay, cool. So sales is like you said, look down upon. It's eat what you kill even. I thought I might get some controversy with this title because, people perceive, oh, I'm not a good salesman. I don't want to push people on something. I don't want to like have this, persona of I'm trying to be, too aggressive or whatever. And I'm like, no, I like the duality of eat what you kill, carnivore. Like it is a hunt. Like you are on a hunt, but you might be saving a life. And if you think of like a hunter in the indigenous tribe where it does go kill this animal, but it has so much sacredness to it and it has so much like respect for the animal and they're going to treat it right because that's the cycle of life. Sales is the cycle of life. Sales is a lubricant of society. Without sales, none of us have jobs. Nothing happens, right? And so I sold alarms and I was in a town called Canadian, Texas, and I was it was at beginning I was struggling in this town because there'd never been crime. You know what I mean? People don't lock their doors. I'm selling alarm systems and it's in the middle of no man's land. There's 2,000 people. They all know each other. It's like they're all family. You know what I mean? And I knocked this down. I ended up having a lot of success after I kind of shifted my mindset. I go back a year later. I remember selling this old dude. It took me like 2.5 hours. I'm putting some pressure on him. I'm like, dude, you just need to do this. Like, he's kind of resistant. And I went back a year later to the same town because I had so much success. I was like, I wonder if I just went back how I do. And this lady opens the door and she just starts to cry. And I was like, well, that's not normal door. Normally they pull a gun on
Yeah.
you, they spit on you, they
Yeah.
slap you. And I'm like, okay, what's going on, man? Like, and she's like, are you Sam Taggart? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, come with me. And she takes me down the street to her dad's house. And she's like, you set up my dad last year. And if it weren't for this medical pendant that you set him up with, he'd be dead.
Mm.
And I think, let's just take that one town. I sold thousands of accounts, but let's just take that one town. I think it did probably 400. Most of them probably never even, no, not 400, probably did like 150 over like 3 years span in that town. And I was like, nobody probably used it. You know what I mean? Like in my head, I'm like, they never lock their doors. They probably don't know tech. Like, I don't know. Take the thousands over the years I did. Was it maybe for this one guy? Were they all paying monthly? Maybe so that I helped this one guy and I had the persistence to do it because now is it all worth it? If I went back to every customer that felt bad about paying for a 3-year contract in their alarm system and I told them, hey, had I not put pressure on you, I'm not God. I don't know who's going to have a fire or a break-in or a medical emergency. I'm just going to set everybody up so that if it does happen, I at least feel I have a good conscience. I don't care if you're selling cars or insurance or whatever, but if you approached everybody like you're a superhero of like, who knows? I'm not God. I think everybody needs my product or service because who knows when they'll need it or want it or the referral or the this or the chain of events. And I think if you could switch this selling with love mentality of like, I'm here to serve, all of a sudden this eat what you kill has a new reverence to it. And I think a lot of people have this fear of salesmanship because they're like, they feel almost sleazy because they're like, I'm so good at this now. Cause you reach a level where you're like, I'm so good now that I almost could sell people that probably don't need it. Do they really need it? You know what I mean? You're just like,
Well, that's where the ethics come in. Yeah.
exactly. Now you have to play into the ethics side. So anyway, I think having this mentality of like belief in your system or your product or whatever you're pushing will then lead to a better salesmanship later on.
I agree. And I think every good salesperson has a story like that. I've got two that I'll share that I think illustrate where we need to come from. Because, where people get this wrong is they take that mindset literal. I'm out to kill the customer and I got them as a trophy. And that's not what it is. It's a mindset of you're going to go to battle against people, a negative stigma about people rejecting you. And it is an inner battle that's happening. It's more inner. But the true sales professional is driven by that ultimate altruistic need of saying, there is a solution that I have. They just may not know it's available. So one of my favorite salespeople of all time is a guy named Scott Hardy. I talked about him in that article too. And he talks about his time that he had that, and he used to sell long-term healthcare insurance. And he came to his buddy's dinner at his house, family was there, and they were talking about how his father just came down with this illness and it was going to be expensive, and I don't know how the family was going to pay for it. And he goes, the moment that conversation came up, my heart sunk to the floor because I knew what was going to happen next. And sure enough, his best friend goes, Mom, Dad, this is what Scott sells. Like, this is what he does. He can solve this. And of course, like a record scratch, the whole family turns and looks at Scott. And he had to tell him that he wasn't able to help because the policy would have had to be in place prior to diagnosis. And he goes, but that wasn't the hard part. Hard part was what the father said next. When he looked at me and he said, so were you waiting for something like this to happen before you told me about it? And it was one of those moments where it was like the realization of, do I really believe in what I'm selling? And if I do, then I have an obligation to share it, at least share it in the best possible way so that somebody can make a decision based on all the information, based on what's best for them. And that's where the beauty of presentation skills, that's where my passion comes in presentation. Is like, if I know that I have a solution, and most solutions in life are resisted. Healthy diets are resisted. Insurance is resisted. But those things that we resist are the things that we wish we would have done. And so as salespeople, we have to learn to overcome that initial moment of resistance. And that's why I think makes you so good, is that you are so disarming, and your smile and your sort of laid back demeanor. I think that comes from a foundation of understanding that you're doing something good. And I've never met anybody upset over value creation. Never seen that. But that's the job of a salesperson, is communicate value and show that value in the contrast to the money being asked for and the value being created. And that's where the beauty of value is created, because it's in that delta between the two.
The problem in the human, like I'm in sales, or I'm selling insurance, or whatever the thing is, it's almost like you're getting in the way a lot of times. It's like your insecurity, your lack of salesmanship, your inability to present or just explain the solution in a proper fashion actually is getting in the way of selling.
Yeah.
And like you're selling people out of it a lot of times, or you're underselling. I went to my sales guys and I started listening. We sell coaching now, and it's like I'm listening to their call and I'm like, wow, you just made us sound terrible. And I was like, you just undersold all the coolness of what we're doing. And I just and I was like, you know what? That guy could have had his life changed, but yet because you were lazy and you didn't really follow the script, and because you overstepped the value creation of this and you didn't ask these right questions, he's now like, could you basically said, hey, do you want to come to this event? Why would he want to come to this event? Like, he doesn't.
Yeah, there's no reason to.
This is, yeah. Like, I was just like, what? Why? I wouldn't go. But if he went, what's on the other side of that? I just watched so many people, because of undertrained insecurity and inability of having the proper language pattern or communication tactic, they're getting in the way. They're creating more friction. But practice, and this intentional practice, and hopefully in the book, you'll be able to get some tools and arsenal, but it's like a study. It's something that not just my one book's going to revolutionize your ability to go implement all this stuff, but hopefully you'll be able to walk away with some better tools to alleviate the friction of your sales process.
Yeah. And you're right. It's when you realize that a poorly communicated value proposition is a disservice. Like, I wish somebody would have sold me harder on buying a home when I was younger. Now, I did, but I sold that first home. If I would have kept that home, if I would have kept my home in Vegas, I sold a home in Vegas, and literally 6 months it went up by $600,000. Why didn't somebody sell me harder on that? Like, I didn't have a salesperson to come in and say, no, you should keep this and buy another one. If you are in sales, and we'll come back to whether you think you are or you aren't, because all of you are, you have to then surrender to the reality that value needs to be communicated. And if you don't, you are at the mercy of somehow the market communicating the value for you. And that is a limiting place to be. But you want more income, but you're not willing to do the things to get there. What I found is that when you find that inner fire of saying, oh man, I really do have a solution. That's why the first step in sales training is conviction. Like, are you even convinced? I don't know if you remember the enthusiasm, the last 4 letters, I am sold myself, right? We used to write 18 years old, enthusiasm, we'd underline ISAM, I am sold myself. But it's like, if you're not sold on this, and that's why tell people, I said, what's the first word that comes to car salesman? And they all say sleazy, pushy. I said, great. So you're projecting your general feeling around selling. I walked in to get my truck and I was convinced. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get out of this more, nicer, sort of higher end pickup truck. I just want the basic point A to point B. I'm traveling all the time. Let me try to do a prudent decision. And I had this just plain, and I walked by the Rebel, and it was red interior, leather, and I look at it, and it was raised up 4 inches, and aggressive tires, and I'm like, I go, please sell me this. Just sell me, because I don't want it, but I want it. And he's like, oh, okay. Do you like it? I'm like, clearly, sell it to me, because I wasn't expecting. And he did this the most poor job, but I'm helping him. No, this is what I want. Does it do this? And I'm like, I wanted to be sold on this thing. And being sold on something, I think, is a beautiful experience, as long as it solves a problem, right? Because let's talk about that for a minute. The ability to sell and persuade is a very powerful tool. And with it, just like Spider-Man's uncle would say, with great power comes great responsibility. And just because you can persuade and can sell something does not mean that you should. I was literally, and I'll tell you this brief story, and I want you to elaborate on this. It was probably 2 weeks ago. I was on the phone. Somebody just went to an event of mine. They wanted to come and do Amplify, $6,000 investment. They're like, ready to go. And then I'm ready to close it. They got the order form up, ready to fill it out. And they're like, do you do payments? I'm like, yeah, we can figure that out. Well, I don't have any money right now. And so I'm going to put this on a credit card, but I don't have any money. And it's a single mom. And I was like, okay, pause for a minute. When you say you have no money, she's like, no. And she gave me the story. And I said, okay. I go, you have some basics that you need to cover first. I said, I'm not going anywhere. I said, I'm not taking your money. I said, but here are things, if you want to do this, I knew their industry well. I said, I want you to do these 5 things. If you do these 5 things, call me in a week. See where you're at. I go, but I'm not taking your money today. Can't. There's no way. You need to do this. Save your money, but invest in this. Do these 5 things, and then call me. And I think maybe I go, these events are happening every month. I'm not going anywhere. And I also said, here's a free month of a coaching program that I have. I said, just do it until you're back on your feet. And to me, that's the right thing to do in that moment, because I have plenty of other people that are going to go by.
I did that literally last week. I'm in Orlando. I'm speaking at a pressure washing and permanent lighting conference. And this kid comes up to me and he's like, I want to buy your book, right? And I'm selling this $1,000 course plus an event or whatever. And there's everybody buying it, right? And at first I was like, all right, just come 2 weeks, come to our event. It's right here in your backyard. And he's like, I have no money. And I asked him this question, and I'm going to ask everybody listening to this podcast. I said, what are you doing tomorrow? And he's like, well, I got to follow up on this one lead. I got to go spray this guy's house. I said, how long does it take you to spray a house? And he's like, because he's everything. He's the owner. He's the sprayer. He's the sales guy. He's the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this young buck and I said, well, no, but like, what are you doing? And he said, it's like about an hour and a half. And I said, okay, so follow up with the lead. Let's say it took you 2 hours to drive there and talk to him. Let's say it took you an hour and a half to go spray it. Call it drive time. We're at 5 hours. What are you doing the rest of the day? I said, your answer should be go knock.
Prospect.
I said, your answer should be go knocked. And I said, I'm not going to sell you anything, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell you on the idea that I guarantee if I said, what are you doing the next day? It would probably be like, I don't know. And you're a business owner and you're coming to me saying you have no money in your bank account right now. And the problem is your phone isn't ringing as much as you want it to. And your marketing budget is very little because you have no money and you have no Facebook. And I'm like, let's break this down. How much would it cost you to go talk to 50 people tomorrow? And how much more business? He's like, well, I don't know. I don't know how to sell. I'm like, I give you the book, dude. Here you go. And I promise you in chapter X, you're going to see the pitch and it's going to break down exactly what I say. So don't sit here and tell me you can't. Now the question is, are you willing to or not? And yep. I said, I will make you the $1,000 I wanted to charge you before. You could make that tomorrow, like very easily. And the next day and the next day and the next day, because what you sell, the margin is over $1,000 and it's not that hard. You're selling a pretty basic thing, dude. And come to find out, his brother is the top general manager of the local pest control company. And I was like, wait, your brother works for Hawks, where they have 1,000 plus sales guys that are all 1099 that all knock doors. And I'm like, what are the
Yeah.
coincidences? This Utah juggernaut of a company is your brother. He manages and is one of the top GMs. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, and he hasn't told you to just go effing knock and stop being broke? Or
He
he has,
probably did, but you don't listen to family. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, what? And I'm over here like, okay, dude, you can live forever like this, or you can make a decision. And hopefully he calls me or something. That was last week, but I see that all the time. And
Yeah.
anything listening to this, I'm like, okay, what are you doing tomorrow? Would be my question. Or what are you doing today? And I guarantee you there's a 4-hour window of your day that is empty. And it's like, how about you just pick up phone or go knock or just cold DM? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
There's something that you can do. It's like the scene from Fridays that you ain't got a job, you ain't got shit to do. Go knock, and it's the reality. And let's break down what Sam's talking about here is the question of what are you going to do tomorrow? Sales process is simple. And we broke it down to acronym PAPCAR, just as a general, say it's prospecting, appointments, presentation, closing, aftercare, and referrals. And it's that simple where I go, I don't have money. Prospect. Just if this, then that. Because I can't close a deal right now unless I have a lead. And I can't, unless I've presented value to somebody. I can't present value to somebody unless I actually have a lead that somebody's interested. I can't generate a lead unless I prospect. So it's a very dependent event system. And so, like, to me, I've been in that situation a million times. I'll be in it again. I just, now, once you get used to it, you don't let off the gas on prospecting and lead generation. I'm an old school sales guy. I don't buy ads. We don't do any of that stuff. I've hired firms to do that. It doesn't really work all that well for us. Probably because I'm not passionate about it. We got some other stuff that we're working on. I'm still learning to embrace the marketing digital side. But to me, at the end of the day, I can count on me. I can count on me to close a deal and count on me to generate something. And I know the marketing experts are going to hear this and say, it's not great. But I love the fact that you guys are good at marketing. But marketing and selling are different. Very different skill sets, different disciplines. And people put them together, they shouldn't. They're very, 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 very different.
Here's the place where, and I'll just add this and I'll let you keep going.
Please.
The part that people cross their tips is when a salesperson comes to me and says, I need more, I should get paid so much. And I'm like, no, you should get paid a third of what the dude that found the deal should get paid. Yeah. Does that make sense? And I watch it flip flop a lot of times where the closer is like, I'm a closer, I'm a stone cold. And I'm like, yeah, you got pre-fed a perfectly groomed appointment on your calendar.
An appointment. You're a order taker is what you are.
You're an order taker. And I said, you know who should get paid a lot is the dude that got that on your appointment that had to get his face kicked in all the day. But so many people are like, oh, you're just a setter. Oh, you're just an SDR. And oh, you're just like, you'll figure it out one day to become the closer. And I'm like, man, we should switch this mentality a little bit. So anyway, keep going.
But your point is that we used to call it minding, finding, and grinding, right? Like it's like if you split up commissions, there's 3 parts of this. Who's going to find this thing, and who's going to mine it? Then who's going to grind it, right? Like there's a finder's fee, somebody that gets and finds the opportunity, and that all depends on the piece. But if you can do all 3, that's where you make all the money.
Yes.
And then if you can outsource some of the other pieces, then you can close. I mean, there's levels to the game, but in the beginning, you can capture and integrate that whole value stream.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so like, I love the whole idea of how do I uncover value that isn't seen? How do I offer a solution in that moment? But then we get into the reality of objections, right? And people say, how do I overcome this objection? And I said, well, have a better presentation. Your presentation should be ever evolving. Every objection you get, if you get it repeatedly, should then be reverse engineered and worked into your presentation as a preemptive strategy. If you're constantly running up against this objection, then you're not covering it early enough, period. And that's what it comes down to. And then you get the people that are just like, I'm going to close right now, and then I'm going to overcome objections to the close, which is a very old school mentality. It works. Doesn't build much of a relationship, doesn't build any referral business or repeat business, because it's more of a push, and hopefully they don't rescind after the 3 days. And there's not real skill in that to me. Like, to me, that's, I don't have much respect for that approach. I do love the approach, which is a great presentation, and then people give the BS reasons as to why, and to watch. And I've seen you do this on video, where you ask questions and you bring people back to the real conversation. and you get them back to overcome it. And so let's just assume we've done a great presentation and we've overcome those in the presentation. Talk to me about the mindset and the art form of overcoming objections and keeping the prospect in the game, even when they've said, no, I don't want to do it.
I think there's two types and there's two scenarios. Like you said, the BS, we call those smoke screens. I think it's clearly identifying, is this just them at the very end trying to wiggle out just because they like are afraid of commitment? It's not that they don't want it. It's not that they can't afford it. It's not that but they just want to like test you at the very end. Or a lot of times on that pitch, right? You knock a door, they come open, not interested. It's like, I'm giving away $100, not interested. It's like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what you're doing. They're going to just say their go-to, not interested, I'm busy. They're going to make something up, right? It's because they have this fear and this perception of I'm going to get sold or I'm getting took, or if I make a decision, I'm going to regret that. So it's just, in my opinion, it's this element of, can I help them feel comfortable through trust, rapport, value creation, and some urgency to say, hey, look, you're making a good decision. Now is a good time to make that decision. And you're not going to get made fun of. And no one's going to like, put you on their social media and be like, this idiot got sold. You know what I mean? Like their fear of looking bad, their fear of, going to their partner or their spouse and being like, honey, I made this decision without you. Am I a terrible person? Like, they don't want to have any of that. That's all like really it is.
Right.
If you did a good job with your presentation, you did a good job at preemptively overcoming objections. Now it's just speaking to the comfortability of them saying, it's okay to make a decision. You're in good hands. And I like to use a term like, take the straight line from Jordan Belfort. He's like, do they buy your company? Do they buy you? And they buy your product? And if they're a 10 out of 10 on all these things, then it's going to be a more frictionless strategy, right? So it's like if you said, hey, at the end, if all of this sounds great, I know you love this, but obviously you want to know about the company. So if you were to buy from a company, what would you want to see out of that company? Like, what would make you say, yes, I love this company. They're the one. What would come to that decision? And they might say, well, they got to have good reviews. Awesome. How many good reviews? I mean, is it like 5 or is it like 50? And I know in the back of my mind, my company has 100. So I'm over here like, are we talking like 5, 50? Like how many total reviews? Well, as long as they had 50, yeah, I'd definitely do it. All right. So if we had, let's say more than 50 and what stars, and then you kind of trap them into this element of like, help me understand what would be your buying process. They're like, yeah, okay, cool. So you now know we're a good company of 100 and a 4.8 star. And let's make this rock. Like, and
they set the rules at that point.
Yeah, you help them set the rules and then they say, oh, okay. And that's all they wanted. They wanted just some validation of like, you're not getting.
They needed the logic.
Yes. And then just help them make a decision. And here's the second piece to this. And this is where every sales, like always be closing, this term comes into play, is so many people get this insecurity at the very end. They go through all this, they do a perfect thing. And then they're waiting for the customer to be like, all right, like sign me up. It's like, I hate to break it to you. The close must be like this. All right, so what's the best email I could send this over to you? Or, hey, did you want to get that scheduled for on Thursday or Friday? Which day works better for you? You've got to have a kind of a transitioning line.
Those are your basic skills that you have to have, your alternate choice close. Like you have to learn those skills to be able to use them in that moment you're talking about. And that's what I think is critical. So keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have this arsenal of like, maybe you did 3 or 4 different attempts at that kind of last move transition line, but it's like the closer, the unprofessional salesperson gets stuck right there. They're like, man, I did all the things and we went through it and we battle tested this and then they didn't buy. And I'm like, well, did you just start getting their credit card information? Did you just say, hey, like what card did you want to put this on? Like, did you go for the next step? And then did they say, no, I don't want it? Or did it just kind of fizzle out because they didn't know where to go and you didn't take them anywhere? You're leading the conversation.
And to me, I think, if you've done, like to your point, I've preempted everything. I've covered all the pieces. To me, the sooner I'm like, great. I said, what credit card do you want to use? And I pull it up and I don't even look at them. I'm on Zoom. I was looking at what credit card, and it's on there. They can see it. But I can see their body language. And if they start grabbing their wallet, we're good to go. If they don't, they're like, well, I go and I just prepare myself. And I was like, because now I'm going to get the real objections, or potentially, I love you, he says smoke screens. And I'm just going to listen, because at the end of the day, there's not a single person that's been mad about getting into my course. Never. And I even say it. I'm like, guys, John, I'm going to put my sales hat on real quick, because I do need to close you on this. And it's very upfront. I need to close you on this because, one, John, what you've told me, we're losing money by you not being able to communicate this. And you're talking about millions of dollars sitting out there. So, John, I would do you a disservice if I was patient, right? I'm going to care enough about you to be unreasonable. Which one of these dates are you going to use? And now that's a loving nudge, right? Because I'm also not underhanded. There's nothing hidden about it. I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and I'm going to close you. And I go, and John, you're in sales too. How are you going to learn from somebody that can't do what I'm doing right now? And this is what you want to do, isn't it? They go, yeah. I said, and John, this comes from a passion of what I believe. And I said, my wife has closed so many people. And one thing that we hear over and over, thank God Maddie pushed me into doing this. And so, John, I believe in lovingly pushing. If it was your diet, I'd push you to eat better. If it was your exercise, I'd push you to work out harder. If you were smoking, I'd push you hard to stop smoking. If you were drinking too much, I'd push you hard, man. I go, so I believe in pushing things that we believe. And John, I hope you push me too on things you believe. And those are all philosophies. And the difference between manipulation and influence, and I put sales in on the influence side, is manipulation is three things. One is the extreme use of persuasion at the expense of somebody else, done underhandedly. So I don't know that it's happening. And so to me, I'm just going to make it very obvious. We're in a world, we know we're selling. Let's not be ashamed of it. Of course I'm selling this. I said, you got to sell your services every day. Well, W2, well, yeah, but you better. If you don't show up, you're going to get fired. If you don't hit quota and goals, you're going to get fired. I said, so we're all selling, which really means we're all adding value. Now, John, if what I've said is of no value, please do not buy it. But you did say this, and you said this, and you said this. Are those still true? Wonderful. So, John, let's keep your eye on the ball. Let's go. But there's something freeing, too, about just being so explicit about the process and where I'm coming from. And then that point, honest stories come up. Let me tell you about so-and-so. Third-person stories are wonderful. It's so powerful in that moment. But I think, what I hope you guys are hearing out of this, and just if you watch, I hope you watch that video, because I want you to see Sam sort of just really relaxed, very disarming, unfazable sort of approach, because, whether you're buying or not, he's still going to be Sam.
Yep.
And that neutral sort of mindset of somebody who's a true master, and don't mistake his calm mindset for not being an absolute killer. This guy knows every inch of the process and the mindset, but the beautiful thing that makes him a killer is he does it with heart. And that, my friend, is what I think makes you so different in today's sales world, and why you are that breath of fresh air.
Thank you. That felt very genuine, and I appreciate that, Rene. And guys, if you don't catch where he just walked you through that process, and like practice that, go role play like what he just did. Rewind this and say, can I say it like he just said? You said this, you said this, you said this. Are those things still true? Like, just know how to say exactly what he just said and regurgitate it. And promise, like what he just said, he's passionate about what his course is. He's passionate about it. His customers have all been happy with what he does. And I think that's a clear tale that you should stay where you're selling. And I think if you have a company that you sell for, a product you sell for, where every other person's canceling, and you have no control over that, like it's just like, man, we have a sucky thing. There's a million things to sell. You know what I mean? Like, but if you're selling yourself, meaning you're selling your own coaching or this or this, like, you should work on the delivery, because at the end of the day, if you do not believe and it is not working and it is not, you know what I mean, and you cannot see the value, then change the team or change the team. And what I mean by that is you need to change first, because the first thing you're going to be a victim of is, oh, it's the product, the price, the this. And I'm like, no. It's not that. It's you aren't a good enough salesman. So that's the first direction I would go, because the first place you're going to blame is something else. And it's like, you got good at selling this thing, and now it becomes crap. No one loves this thing. Now we can talk the secondary. And the third thing I'll say to that is, when you find this, it doesn't matter the widget. Like, I could go sell, pressure washing. I had one of my experts go knock, what's it called? Landscape, like the sprinkler system repair. And he sends me a thing this weekend, and he's like, bro, I broke the dude's record. He did more in a day than he did in 2 weeks' time. And he never sold sprinkler repairs. Like, we laid more pipe. He's just like, it was crazy. But it's like, he never done it. But it's sales. He knows sales. And then what that leads to is freedom. And I think everybody is out for financial freedom, for their freedom of anxiety or depression and stress. To me, money is one of the biggest causes of divorce, anxiousness, etc. But if you knew you could have this freedom that says, no matter what, if I lost the economy, the job, the whatever, I have this skill set that no one can take away, that creates a sense of freedom, which I think is what the premise of like why I'm more passionate about anything is helping people unlock that, because so much is more possible when you come from the sense of carnivore of I am not dependent on anything but me, because I can do the full stack. I can create money from nothing because I know how to do this. And that's what I'm passionate about.
What a way to close it, because that is exactly it, man. I love it. So, folks, if you haven't already, please buy this book, Eat What You Kill, by also an incredible publisher. It's this Penguin, isn't it? Random House?
Yeah.
Yeah, which means not easy to be selected to write with this company. But get the book. Follow Sam at the Sam Taggart on Instagram and socials. You're going to love his videos. They're hilarious. Sometimes he'll video himself doing bloopers, and but this is the reality of selling. But you're also going to see his heart and his passion in there. So please make sure to follow him. And guys, if you like this, like, subscribe, follow, all of the crazy good things that we want you to do. And Sam, any last words as we close this out?
I just would challenge everybody that listened to this full thing. You made it this far. You're 40-something minutes in. Is do something different in your sales world today, not tomorrow, but it's like you're in your business, go DM 20 people that you would have never normally DM'd. Go make 15 phone calls to old sitting data in your database. Like does that make sense? Like go do something that you might have to go knock your neighborhood. I remember I was telling these personal trainers and I'm like, go to 5 people in the gym that are overweight and say, ma'am, I'm so proud of you just getting out here today and getting after it. Like, I know it probably wasn't easy to get here today. Like whether it's just do something different that isn't your Facebook funnel. It's just you talk to 5 strangers at the gym, and I want you to see what's on the other side of that and get a taste of that.
Love it. And that's what it's about, guys. Just that simple thing is get out there and create activity, because that's what this game is about. I want to thank you guys for listening today. And Sam, brother, thank you. Congrats on the book. This is going to be one of those that's going to be iconic for the years to come. And so congrats, and thank you all for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode.
Thank you for sharing this time with us. If the experience resonated with you, follow us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or AmplifyMyLife.com. Share it with anyone else who's ready to amplify their lives. And remember to let our hearts speak in sequence. For more from Rene Rodriguez, visit meetrene.com.